Welcome to another episode of Hat Collecting, the multi-passionate experience. This month for July, which is Disability Pride Month, I've been doing a special mini-series with a variety of disabled friends and peers that I know and talking about their disabilities, their experiences, and what we can learn from them. I am your host, Lacey Arnholz. My pronouns are she and they. I am a white, early 40s, feminine presenting person with long brown hair, and I'm wearing black headphones and a pink shirt. And I'm joined today by my friend, who will introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Victoria Urquhart. I use she, her pronouns. I am a feminine presenting person with, I am Caucasian with reddish brown hair. I'm currently wearing a sunny yellow button-down shirt with white polka dots. And I'm coming to you from my partner's living room.
Yes, I'm coming from an undisclosed location.
The mystery.
Yes. I have a set of questions that I've been asking or using as the guide rails, I guess. And sometimes we have gone in past episodes, sometimes we've gone off and I've asked other questions, but this is where we start and we see where it goes. But the first question, why we're here in the first place, what disability or disabilities, plural, do you personally experience that you would like to talk about today?
Yeah, I mean, I am AuDHD, so that's ADHD autistic. Happy to talk about that today. Also happy to talk a little bit about long COVID as a chronic illness and how we navigate spaces with that.
Excellent. Yes, we are both AuDHD, and I have been kind of following your journey through Facebook primarily of the very unfortunate experiences that you've been having with the medical system and getting various diagnoses. And we have talked, I spoke to past guest Yolanda Bonnell about accessibility and disability justice in the theater space, which is something that I also know that you have some experience with. So we could talk about each of those things. But the next question, do your multiple disabilities impact, influence, or inspire the work that you do, whether to the extent that you do advocacy versus just being a human being living your life with these, disabilities? And if you do advocacy, what forms of it do you do?
Yeah. So I would say where I'm at in my journey, my disabilities definitely inspire a lot of my work right now. Um, and that's because I was late diagnosed, so I didn't really fully come into this identity until a few years ago. And as per the journey that a lot of ADHDers have, it starts with one and then the other, and you kind of start piecing all of the things together. Um, and when I initially came to the realization of my autism, um, I started taking up space really differently, um, largely because there was an answer for that awful question that rings out in our heads of well, why am I like this? Why do I have to be this way? Why am I so difficult? Why am I taking up so much space, and why am I a burden to everybody, and why, and blah 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 blah, 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 all of the negative talk. And the start with that was, oh, because you're autistic. And being autistic isn't, why are you this way? It's actually like, it's a good thing because it's not bad. It's just different. And there is a way to navigate spaces responsibly so that your single experience doesn't take up the entire room. And this is why we always check, what is the space for, and then navigate from there. Because I don't want to enter a space that's very clearly about something else, and make it all about my autism. I also want to be able to enter a space that is meant for, equal opportunities, and especially within my art, um, neurodivergent experiences, new experiences, and be able to find a space that is that fit for my autism in various different ways. And also, my spike profile for my autism is going to be different from another autistic person's
We should
spike
pause on
profile.
that really quick. Sorry to interrupt
Yeah.
you. Glad you're bringing that up because that hasn't come up yet. So what you're talking about, how would I describe this? It's kind of like a radial graph of sorts, and it has different categories, and then each category has almost like a plane propeller coming out from it. I guess I'm trying to describe this from the picture in my head, and it's basically each category. It's like how high, how much you quantify, and I did a terrible
Yeah,
job here. I
it's
feel like.
I think about it in the skills chart that RPG characters have sometimes.
Yes.
Um, and how it is a circular chart, and then there's like a pie slice in each
Mm,
section of that circular chart, and then across all of the pie slices there is like a dot or a line that a dot in each of those pie charts to identify what your skill set is in that area. And then as you connect those dots, they make spikes, hence spike profile. At least I think that's
yeah, it's funny you said spike profile, and I've never heard it called that, but I instantly knew what you were talking about. So, because like to me, they look like the way that I usually see them, they look more like propeller blades or fan blades sticking out.
yeah, yeah,
But because they're always different lengths, like if that was an actual like fan, it wouldn't work very well because they're usually not equally like long.
yeah.
But yeah, so just for anyone that isn't familiar, that's kind of, if you go and search for maybe spike profile on image search, you probably find it.
Or spiky profile. I've seen that they've
Maybe.
they've switched it to spiky profile now, and I'm like, is the Y really the difference there? Uh, but
But yeah, so everyone's spike profile is different, you were saying.
yeah, yeah. Which explains how there's a range of abilities with social skills, and with verbal and nonverbal, and with problem solving, and all of the things that they like to include in there. Um, yeah, uh, navigating and finding the moments of when we take and when we give space, and um, that's an ongoing journey for a lot of autistic people, and understanding that taking up space isn't bad, because we've been told for so long, like, how could we take up so much space? It's such a burden, as is the disability way.
Well,
Society
yeah.
was not built with us in mind, but it could be.
It reminds me of how I've seen uh, there's been like memes on the internet about how ADHD isn't named for what it actually is. It's named for the way that it inconveniences neurotypicals. It's like
Yeah,
we don't have an attention deficit. We can hyperfocus. It's just that we have trouble regulating that focus. So at least autism is not named that way.
yeah, yeah. Um, I mean, there are aspects of autism that have definitely been named that way, but we're unearthing that, and we're dismantling that, which I'm really glad for. Um, but yeah, that's been a really big inspiration point for me, particularly because what we're seeing now in the world outside of the disability perspective, and like we saw it in the pandemic, and not just on a base level with disabilities. It's the world is there's a lot of processes that are going on infrastructurally, as well as communally, where we're finding we need a lot more cognitive empathy. There needs to be a lot more consideration of the mental and emotional processes that we go through to complete tasks now. Um, it's like we exhausted ourselves or something and ignored a lot of things for way too long, but who knows what that's about. um, but yeah, and a lot of autistic people are kind of faced with those issues from the second that we're born. And like a friend of mine who has a very different autistic experience from me, actually, when we first met and when we first started hanging out, would actually give me instructions for how to operate various different things, including conversations, because they wanted to provide other people access to them. And they wanted other people to not have to struggle with the same points that they struggled with learning how to operate a simple piece of technology, the first 10 times. And that, like, and while some people, I imagine, would find that annoying on a social level, for myself, like, I automatically, like, I really connected with that from my experiences and went, this person wants things to be easier for me, you know? And so I really connected with that. And I see that this isn't every autistic person, but I see that in a lot of people. And in regards to my art and how it reflects on society, and how we see a lot of the issues that we're going on, that we're going through on a micro to a macro level, I just see so many small steps that take like less than a second to do, that can help with that. And so that's right now, that's where a lot of my art comes from, a lot of my storytelling, as well as, making space for invisibly disabled stories, perspectives, characters, because not a lot of people know that story yet. And not a lot of people even know the term cognitive empathy, and how that is to differ from, what we consider to be regular empathy. A lot of people don't know that there's multiple forms of empathy. So that's a big inspiration point for me. And that is, I think that's like the first 25% of the question that you asked.
Yeah. We can think we'll probably, because I think that the neurodiverse stuff is going to tie in with the other parts. So I want to make sure that we give sufficient time to kind of your more recent experiences, because unfortunately we are in this time where we're still in a pandemic, even though a lot of people like to think otherwise, and people are still unfortunately becoming permanently disabled by COVID, even in 2025. And like it has been talked about in at least one previous episode of this series, but and I had a scare recently where I thought that I might have gotten long COVID. I'm still not sure what that whole situation was, but yeah, I guess I don't want to just be like, oh, tell your story, because that's too broad. But like, I'm trying to figure out where to start and how to come into this. That that I don't want to make it like too. I want to help to make it easier for you, I guess, to tell the story.
Yeah, no worries.
So when I guess when we'll kind of maybe we'll do it in like bite-size bits, and then we can go in a bit deeper. So approximately when did your long COVID journey start?
Hmm. Um, yeah, I mean, it started with vaccination for me because I had a vaccine reaction. I am pro-vaccine, just to put that out there. And uh, I was able to get my first vaccine and my second vaccine relatively quickly. Um, and that was because coming from disability and uh, knowing that uh, it would be really difficult to navigate the whole system administratively. A lot of autistic people get caught up in administrative systems, and we don't mean to. Um, and a lot of that happens because it is a lot of the time like what's being presented to us is there's a new infrastructural process, and we would love to be able to just fit right in and have it very direct and not cause any problems for anybody. But also, in order to do that, a lot of the time we have to ask questions ahead of time, to make sure that we understand, to make sure that we can go through it. And then a lot of people get mad at us for asking questions that a lot of people think, oh, well, that's simple, basic knowledge. Like people should know how to do this. And it's like, actually, nope. And there's a lot of minute, detailed explanations as per why. Um, and I digress. I was able to get my vaccine early on, and the first one went great. The second one, I had a reaction, and I was hospitalized for 4 days. It was a little scary at the time. We didn't know all of what was going on, and our healthcare system was already strained at that time. And so the amount of time and thought and care that could go into that was quite limited. And I was discharged rather quickly before we knew a lot of what was going on. And so my GP and I just got a GP right before this happened too. So it was a very, like, after years of not having a GP, I got one and we were comfortable with each other. It was and then all of a sudden this hit. And so my GP, the second I got out, sent me to get all of these tests done, and all of them came back negative. And so we kind of sat and we waited. But what we had found was there was like one or two tests that were still coming back positive, for like something's off. There's a certain amount of organ issues. We don't know what this is. And so we just kept an eye on it for months. And then I started to get some rashes and stuff that started to pop up, just like skin stuff. And they weren't really fully healing. And so I kind of kept tagging that in my mind with questions. And then, I mean, I've always had a little bit of, you stand up too quickly and you could get dizzy, but then those started to like get larger. And then I got COVID for the first time at the end of that year. And my experience of COVID, it was interesting because my ADHD medication, with a lot of stimulants, when you are on a stimulant, it raises your adrenaline so that it can raise the other chemicals in your brain to function. And by raising your adrenaline a bit, it also blocks out a certain amount of pain. So I was kind of going about my day, and felt like things were okay. I had a bit of a cough, and I got this from my partner. Of course, I got it from my partner, who also tested negative, but also at that point had more vaccines than I did, because he could, whereas I could not. We had decided, my GP had told me it's probably a good idea that you don't get any more. I'd actually had 3 by that point. But my partner came home sniffling and sneezing, took a few tests, negative, and then gave it to me. And I had some sniffling and sneezing, but then figured it was okay. And then the medication would wear off, the ADHD meds would wear off at night. And I'd sit there at 7 o'clock being like, why do I feel so awful? And I think by day 3, I took a COVID test, checking in on that, and it came back bright red positive. I was like, oh no. And then I got through that. The dizzy spells started to increase. And then in the fall of that year, no more, like, wasn't even 6 months later, I ended up in the hospital with a vomiting episode. Content warning for people, but I won't go into it beyond that. And my blood work came back from that, and it was kind of weird, but nobody thought anything of it. What I will note is that what we know of that now is that was metabolic acidosis, and probably induced by being so sick spontaneously, and also had our healthcare system not been as stocked up at the time, or not stocked up, but as backed up at the time, as burnt out at the time, because this was 2022. I would have been admitted for investigations, and that was really the beginning of it, and that was where I should have been admitted. Unfortunately, our healthcare system is continuing to work in a triage basis in an extreme manner, so that this could not be properly investigated. There weren't even any notes sent to my GP. There wasn't anything with that. And it, like, nobody thought anything of the low bicarbonate. Nobody thought anything of the numbers, except to go, oh, that's weird. We'll mention that it's weird. No details. And after that, I really struggled to eat. I was getting more and more tests showing a lot more issues. Spring of 2023, I got COVID again, and things really started to crash. September of 2023, all of a sudden, my blood tests are coming back really, like, now we're starting to raise some serious questions. My bilirubin is elevated, and there's some swelling going on in the liver. We got to get an MRI. We got to get the tests continued through beginning of 2024. I was at the point where I was on a low FODMAP diet. I had lost 12 pounds, and I was like, there was more rashes. There was a lot of spots. I had lost my well, I hadn't lost, but I was losing my menstruation cycle. It was getting scary, um, and we didn't know what was going on. After months of looking at the low FODMAP diet and all of the tests and trying to put things together, I remember seeing alongside the low FODMAP diet the low histamine diet. And I looked at that and I was like, can't be that. Can't be that. And it kept coming up and coming up and coming up. And then I saw on a forum a group of supporters, a group of folks who were supporting each other because they needed low histamine diets to battle their long COVID. And I started to piece things together. I started to look up various different articles, and I was like, oh, this is it. And like, I felt it. Like, when you land on something and you know that it's right, or when something happens and or that chill that runs down your spine where you know something before it happens. For me, it's a click. Like, I just feel this, like something turns, like there's clockwork in my body, and it just, something shifts in the right place. There's a gear that turns in the right place, and there's a click. And that was the moment where it's like, I know what I have. I know what I'm dealing with. And then that night, I made myself a pasta dinner because I had been off of pasta for the longest time because that's not low FODMAP. And I had no pain. And I cried because I had been off of pasta. I had been off of tomatoes. I had been off of various different things that I thought I had to be off of for low FODMAP when actually it was low histamine. Still off of tomatoes. The goal is I'm going to be able to eat tomatoes again, but that was the beginning. And I took my partner by the hand. I grabbed a bunch of research, and I went to my GP, who was adamantly telling me that this wasn't it. And I said, no, it is. Did you read this article? Did you read this? Did you read this? All in front of my partner, so that and I said, I want this test. I want this done. We're going to put me back on a corticosteroid just so I can gain a little bit of weight back. And this is how we're going to move through this. And also, I want you to start giving me these tests to lead to a long COVID diagnosis. And at this point, too, all of the long COVID clinics had closed. This was the beginning of 2024. They'd all closed down in Ontario. And most people get a long COVID diagnosis after years. And technically, it had been over a year since we first really found out saw the suffering. A few years since I had been first infected. But what I learned from September 2023 was my body's telling me things that I need to listen to beyond my doctors, because my doctors are not helping me. My doctors consistently were telling me after the initial episode, you have anxiety. This is fibromyalgia, maybe. You need to stop pursuing this. You need to be more involved in social activities. And thankfully, I had a psych and a counselor at my back who could clarify and say to them, this is not anxiety. These concerns, this pain is real. And I mean, I have a psych at my back because I have been involved in studies in order to gain access to my mental health support, and not everybody has that. And my ADHD autism supports specifically. And I have access to a counselor because I'm a child of a divorced marriage where my parents, they divorced when I was 5, and they were like, it's their fault. They're gonna screw the kid up. We better put her in counseling. One of the better choices that they made, and I love them both. But having those two at my back, that was part of what turned the key. And also that is a significant amount of privilege that I want to acknowledge within that. And then by November of 2024, so not even that long ago, I got officially diagnosed with long COVID through an infectious disease specialist. And it was very funny because at this point I had raised money to go into private care for a little bit, and we had certain tests, and my funding had just run out for that. It was recommended by the liver specialist that I had been to after the high bilirubin, where I was told that I was using guerrilla war tactics to gain my testing, which was not true. That was a one-off specialist, and they were having a day. I think I might have been the 5th or 6th person who had come in with some similar issues. And this is also why you always bring a witness to your healthcare sessions, your medical sessions, medical appointments. But I had a tilt test. I had done additional tests for heart rate at the infectious disease specialist appointment. And I also was explaining symptoms of histamine intolerance, as well as, the heightened blood tests, what we had found thus far, how I was navigating that. And he was looking at all of these tests that I had, and I was I can't even remember what experience I was explaining, but he just interrupted me mid-sentence to say, and for context for this, you, especially when you're in the beginning stages, you don't say, I think I have long COVID to any doctor, because they will shut you down. They will gaslight you incredibly hard because they don't want to deal with it, because they're scared. This is the big thing. Doctors are scared. The second things step outside of what they know, it's a concern, it's a liability. Imaging doctors see about 70 radiologists see about 70 cases a day. And so there's no time to list incidentals or differentials, which often leads to, things being missed. As well as, when a specialist, especially, is asked about something that starts to branch outside of their specialty, or that they have to work collaboratively on, which tends to be the case with long COVID, it gets really scary really fast. And there's a potential liability there if they give information that is outside of their scope. So they have to be specifically studying COVID and long COVID in the first place in order to be able to give any information on that. And so there were no doctors at this point who would even give me a second, like they would be sending me on my way if I had said, hey, I think I have long COVID and this is what this is causing. So instead I had to say, well, I have this like post-viral something, things haven't been the same since, and I'm dealing with this issue and this issue. Can we look into this? Meanwhile, I have this whole separate book of I need to get this test and then this test and then this test, and this will help me diagnose long COVID. And even if they don't give me the long COVID diagnosis, I can at least treat it in this way. And I can figure this out through this. I was basically being my own doctor at that point. So we're at this meeting with the infectious disease specialist, and I'm listing all of these things thinking, I'm not going to get the long COVID diagnosis today. What I'm going to get is further testing, and we're going to get some blood work done, and then that will be able to move me to a neurologist, and then that will be able to move me to a cardiologist, and on and on and on. And he's looking through and he's listening to me talk about this, and in the middle of my explanation, he just interrupts me and goes, "Oh my God, you have long COVID." And I take a beat and I look to my partner who's sitting beside me. And then I turn back to him. And because this was not the most emotionally regulated that I had been in a while, I yelled at him in the office and I said, "Thank you." And then I started crying. It's like, "You have no idea how long I've been going through this." And he starts laughing. And he's like, "Yeah, you are the poster child for long COVID." And I just needed it on my chart because I needed several other doctors to stop telling me it was in my head. There were other steps to go after that. And then from there, we were able to go to like, a kidney specialist, a urologist, all of the ologists. And then, and then things got a little more confusing, but that was like the big moment for me with long COVID that really made things a lot easier. Aside from the, figuring out that I had a histamine intolerance. And then for the rest of the day, I'd go over to my partner and be like, hey, guess what? I have long COVID. Like it was some sort of a fashion statement, because especially when you're chronically ill, the diagnosis and the naming of it is so important. You can't treat it. And so many doctors said, don't worry about what it's called. Don't worry about, like, call it Frank if you want, but don't go seeking the name. Don't go seeking diagnoses. That's just really anxiety talking. And I was like, I'm gonna find what this is so that I can treat myself appropriately. Last year was my year of naming. This year is my year of release. Not necessarily that I'm going to go and cure my long COVID, but since naming it, since finding that diagnosis, things have become a lot easier. And since doing that, navigating long COVID when working on sets, when working in theater, when doing interviews, when doing any of these things, it becomes so much easier. And that was such a huge win. Since then, there have been issues where, like, one imaging and one imaging, diagnostic imaging, and one doctor told me that I have stage 4 kidney failure, and I had to live under that for a few months. I don't have stage 4 kidney failure, which is why second opinions right now, especially within diagnostic imaging, are so important. And why we advocate for ourselves so much. So to answer your other question, as I go on this whole journey, my advocacy started with a lot of my realization of my own needs. Whereas in previous years, I think I felt like I wasn't able to advocate, and um, I felt like I wouldn't even know where to start in any kind of allyship. And then once I saw how different things connected to me, and how lifting up others was beneficial to me and also like beneficial for the community, um, that's where my advocacy journey began. Um, and cut to where we are now, and I'm advocating for myself in healthcare. I wouldn't have been able to do that if I hadn't already been advocating as an artist, both for myself and for other people, which is also why I tend to talk about my healthcare story. Because there's a lot of people without access to supports for long COVID. That was a really long rant. Thank you for attending my TED Talk.
Well, let me give you a chance to rehydrate there, and I'll share a little bit briefly on my side of things here. Yeah, one of the things that I thought of while you were telling the story, and thank you for sharing all of that. I've seen
Thank you
this
for
kind of
letting me go
debate.
on.
No, I mean you need to give context, and like I have other friends who have gone through similar things in different ways, and um, like it's very it's cathartic and necessary to be able to like get it out and be heard.
Yeah.
Kind of like some other non-disability related things in my life, but um, I'm one of the things that made me think of was the kind of ongoing debate that I've seen on the internet for years, where there's the labels versus the no labels camps, and some people are like I don't want to like I'm not autistic, I'm just me or something like that, and like
Yeah.
okay, well maybe you don't want a label, but if this other person feels like it really empowers them and explains things and makes them not feel like they're just broken, then I think they should be allowed to claim a label for themselves and take power and pride in that. um, so yeah, like that's a thing, and like that kind of also comes back to the cognitive empathy, which is a great term. I love that. I wrote that down. I'm gonna look into that more, because I know another thing that we're really dealing with in the world right now is I call it like empathy fatigue, basically. Like
Mhm.
when everything is constantly bad and you're always like, oh, I need to feel sorry for these people, I need to feel bad for these people, I need to feel, and like you can't, we
Yeah.
don't have that much. And so I think a lot of people end up disconnecting and tuning out because they're like, I want to care, I just don't have the capacity anymore. And they're not trying to be selfish jerks, they're just like, I basically can't function if I keep pouring out of a cup that is already empty, as they say, in
Yeah.
therapy.
Yeah.
And what's the other thing I was going to say? Oh yeah, like the for me, so um, I have been out of the corporate 9 to 5 world for 9 months now, 8 months. Um, still definitely working on not having to go back to it, but I made a lot of progress there. But I realized how for so many years I put a lot of sorry.
There was a motorbike just drove
Okay,
by.
because
Sorry.
there is some sound coming from nearby, and then there was on the other side, and I was like, oh, but anyway, okay, sorry. Um, so, ye- yes, okay. The ADHD almost got me there.
Almost. It was right there.
Yeah, like for all of my like kind of time in the corporate world, I was always told like don't disclose because like HR is not there to help you. They're there to protect the company. So if you tell them that you're autistic and that you need these accommodations or whatever, then like they're probably like most likely they're just gonna like try to start making your work life unpleasant and miserable so that you will eventually leave and they can hire somebody who's not autistic to do your job. Um, and so I took that kind of to heart for a long time. And it's kind of been, I want to say funny is not the word, but now that I've broken off on my own and like I started my own company because I was like, I'm fed up with just there not being events and spaces that are sensory friendly that I can, like, I want to be able to go and like connect with people. Like, we're in a loneliness epidemic here, and all these events, there's like loud music playing, and like there's like just the acoustics of the venue suck, and like they're not accessible for a million reasons. And like I've talked to people and they're like, yeah, it'd be nice to have more events where I don't have to like yell to talk over, right, to hear people. And like, you know, there's just I've started to notice how even beyond my own struggles, all the other ways that things are not accessible, and financially is another one. Um, and so like I started to kind of like my first, it's been almost a similar process of like, first was like, hey, I think somebody needs to do something about this. Like, oh, okay, I guess I'll start trying to run some events independently, and I'll make them more accessible in the ways that I wish other events were. And then that sort of started to go towards like, oh, I want to do neurodivergence, neurodiversity advocacy more broadly, because that is the primary thing that like influences how I experience the world and live my life more than anything else. And then that kind of went into, now it's getting to the point of like, okay, now what I can get into disability advocacy more broadly. And then I had a meeting last week where they're like, oh, well, why don't you like consult with like venues and event runners to like make their events more accessible? And I was like, I mean, I guess that's basically just an extension of what I was kind of already doing anyway. So it's kind of been like just these going up the stairs, and I'm just now reflecting back on how like, oh, so when I finally started to embrace and try to like advocate for my own access needs, and also the people, like, it's not going to make things worse for anybody else. It's only going to help everybody. So, and I'm like, oh, great. I get to do this thing that is like, I finally get to be honest and open and transparent and like proud of who I am and what I am. And it also gets to, this is my mini TED talk. It
It's
also
great.
help other people. And it's like, and like, when I think about it, like, oh, if I, you know, and the fact that like I've been on this podcast, the video podcast, but like I've talked about these glasses, and I've talked about wearing like earmuffs, and I've talked about special, like, you know, and I'm just even the fact that I'm like, I have hearing difficulties, and I'm getting more open about that, and starting to like be open about that in networking situations, which is awkward because people don't really know how to deal with that.
Yeah.
And but just like, yeah, you know what, I'm tired of spending all the energy of like, it's, maybe this isn't the best analogy, but it's the first one that came to my mind. It's reminding me of the idea of like, don't teach girls how to not get, you know, essayed, teach
Yeah.
not to essay. So don't waste all your energy masking so that other people are not uncomfortable. Make them learn how to make you more comfortable. So I I'm gonna say something kind of self-serving here. I'm to the audience. I'm saying that to the audience. You're my friend, and you're one of the things I just love so much about you. I've only known you for a few months, but I I genuinely love how thoughtful you are. And I know a lot of my other autistic friends are like this. And if you find the right topics, like, I literally could just sit and listen to you for hours. Um, which is why we need to hang out more.
Agreed. Agreed.
um, but yeah, like, and there's a lot of stuff that I want to say in response, but I try to keep these episodes focused more on the guest, especially when we go a bit longer. I think with the length, I wanted to give you space and time to speak here, but I think what I'm going to actually do with this one, because we kind of did like 3 individual chunks. So as much as I don't normally edit this show, I think that it's going to make sense for this one to maybe like turn it into 3, like part 1, 2, 3,
Oh,
and do that. I could also put it out as the whole thing as well, but I just think that might make it a little easier for people to engage with.
I could talk for hours, and I could talk for hours about nothing. So, like, feel free to edit and feel free to, yeah, that's
No,
totally okay.
I like, it's one of those things, like, there's some people that I know where I'm like, I literally just want to do like a weekly show with you and just like talk to you about stuff, because like, and I'm like this too. Like, I'm the one doing the interviewing, and I don't feel comfortable just doing like a monologue podcast by myself. I'm a lot better when I have someone to like kind of bounce off of. Except, if I'm going up on stage and just delivering information, it's a little bit different. But I like, yeah, it's one of those special things. Like, not all autistic people kind of do this, but the one quick thing that I will say is, like, you were talking about all the like doing all your own research with the medical stuff, and I have a couple of other friends who've had to go down that road as well. And I remember when I read Tim Ferriss's book, I think it was 4 Hour Body. It's from years back, and he wrote about these different, like, he paid out of his own pocket to get a bunch of different testing done so that he could understand himself better, like physiologically. And he talked about, like, slow twitch and fast twitch muscle fibers and stuff. And like, even though I'm an artist and I'm very creative and I like to like make things, I have always had an interest in like science and how stuff works. And I just didn't go down that path. My sister did. She's got a master's in microbiology. And
Whoa.
yeah. And I was the one that didn't even get a master's in, art, because you don't really, I mean, yeah. But I've always been interested in that stuff. And so I like, when you're talking about that stuff, I'm like, if it was easier, like I could just go to my doctor and be like, I'd like to get this test done. And then I'd like to sit down with someone and have them explain this to me so that I can understand it, because I want to understand this stuff. I want to be able to, like, I mean, the problem is, like, I'm a hypochondriac and I do have a tendency to, like, skies falling, no. I have friends, thankfully, who can help rein me in with that. But it's like, I do want to understand myself better, like mentally, emotionally, identity-wise, physically, like everything. And I'm endlessly curious, and I love learning, and I love sharing what I learn. So when I get to talk to somebody like you're not necessarily like an expert, but you're thoughtful and you're curious and you've done research and you're presenting your experience and you're presenting what you've learned. And I'm so happy that I know people like this, and this is part of what I love about this show, is that I get to have these conversations and share this information, and hopefully it helps somebody, even if just me. So, with all that said, so you've got your show, I Can Fly. I'm not sure if you can talk about like when that might be ready for public consumption, or if there's anything else that you want to promote right now. But
yeah, I mean, it's in development right now. Theaters, get at me. No, it's in development, and I've been having talks here and there with folks about it. Wow. Blah, blah, blah. And I see now all the ADHD.
Do you live next to a raceway?
Apparently. Yeah. I'm also like, I'm writing a bunch of things all the time. I'm performing a bunch of things all the time. And theaters, get at me. TV shows, get at me. Just, plug. And I'm trying to think of all of the things that are next, and I can't think of anything, of course. But folks can reach out at on my Instagram, G_NITENET. That's G_NightNet.
That link will be in the description. So
cool. And yeah, my autism has presented in a way that I just never, I've the social trauma hit me in the good way, where or at least I have healed from the social trauma to, that's a much better way of putting it, to assume that a lot of the time my view of the world is not the view of the world. I don't assume that my direct like the way that I take in the world and the way that I move through the world isn't, and I'm consistently reminded that it isn't the way that everybody moves through the world. And in some cases that means contextualizing as like, hey, I know I'm a weirdo, but and other times it's, oh, this person just must not know. Okay, that's okay. Like they could have come from 50 different places or experiences so that they just don't know this thing. I'm not going to assume that they're dumb. Um, and yeah, largely because when I was growing up, a lot of people assumed that I was dumb. And that in and of itself is a very ableist phrase that I try to take out. Yeah. So thank you for seeing that in me, and also just thank you for the time, the space. This is really wonderful, and I'm glad that I could be a part of it. And I hope there's like all more for you.
No, seriously, I could do like a weekly show with you, and I don't think we'd ever run out of things to talk about. It's like,
Agreed.
hey, so what's going on in your life this week? That's, just an endless.
Love it. Love it.
Because I'm also not more so. I'm spending less so spending my time learning about medical stuff for my sake of my health as I'm learning about whole new industries and things like aspects of like being self-employed that I haven't really come up against before, and like I'm learning a lot of stuff on the fly, which is cool, but also can be tiring and overwhelming sometimes. So this is kind of where it gets to be a mixture of fun and educational.
Well, don't take all of what I say as rude. I consistently say like everybody look up stuff. Don't take everything I say as this is
Well,
the
that's
way.
why I said you're sharing your experiences and things that you have learned, and that's not saying that those are facts. That's just, you're presenting information. And I think you were very clear about being, like second opinions and whatever, spirituality works for you. Like you weren't like proselytizing anything. So, at least I don't think so. But with that said, yeah, so with that, that's wonderful. I think, as I've been thinking about it, I think it does make a lot of sense to put this into 3 parts. And I will just very quickly, I know I alluded to it, that I created my own company that is not really doing much right now because it's summertime, and summertime's just not really a good time for independent events. But Arty Mix Events is the current name of my thing. The tagline was playful, creative connection for grown-ups, but it's kind of evolving now to be kind of more like playful, creative, accessible, inclusive connection for grown-ups. So that's a mouthful. And
Nice.
yeah, I also am kind of getting into kind of a bit of coaching and like consulting, but that's still kind of taking shape. So right now, that's kind of the main thing. But my website is LaceyArtemis.com. I am at LaceyArtemis on all the social media platforms that I'm on, except for Twitter/X, because I'm not. I mean, I still have an account there, but it's retired. I'm not going back for some what I think are obvious reasons. But yeah, that all said, thank you again for tuning in, for listening. I hope that you learned something, and I'm always bad at the endings of these. So until next time, this has been Hat Collecting, the Disability Experience with Victoria Urquhart, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.